Alrighty, so here we go. How's it going, internet? I am putting out a video. I would like to put these things out more frequently, but if I don't have a good idea or life gets in the way, then it is what it is. And I'm pretty much a one-man operation, and I need to make sure I actually have enough to talk about when I put a video out. So I'm really excited about today's actually because I'm kind of checking off an item on my bucket list and also completing a childhood fantasy as well. And this is the kind of thing that I probably could have done at any point over the past like 15, 20 years, but for whatever reasons, it just never came to pass. Today, I'm going to be talking about a SNES game, a Super Nintendo game that I only got to play as a kid for maybe about a couple hours, and for whatever reason, I at the time I got a chance to play it, I didn't really appreciate it. I didn't really care that much about it. But after having grown up playing like Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy VI and Chrono Trigger and other classic JRPGs and Western RPGs and stuff like that, I have always wanted to go back and actually play and beat Super Mario RPG. This was kind of a I want to say it's not a classic in the sense that it's considered an amazing game, but yet because very few people talk about it in the scheme of things. Oh, by the way, it is The Legend of the Seven Stars. This is a classic RPG, JRPG, but what was unique about it was with Mario, and I guess they hadn't really gotten a chance to do that yet, as far as I can tell. And there have been a bunch of games since then that have come out that are RPG style, like Paper Mario and things like that, and as well as a few other ones, whether it's main consoles or handheld consoles. Um, but this is a series. This is a game that I only got to play a little bit, but now that I have a much better appreciation, I've always wanted to go back and play it and experience it and beat it and just see what it was like or what it would have been like. And of course, I'm coming at it from like a 30-year-old man's video game experience as well. So and of course I played a variety of good and bad JRPGs. So it was interesting to actually go back and play this game and actually experience it. Uh, and I want to really talk about it. I'm super excited though because I finally checked off something that as a kid, I've always wanted to do. For whatever reasons, I never went back and did it. And before anybody says anything, before anybody goes, well, why didn't you just emulate it, you idiot? It's because I'm a caveman and I'm not good with technology. So there you go. Yes, I had the opportunity to try and get emulators to work over the years, but I just never really cared about pirating games that bad. Plus, I also wanted to get like a physical copy. And thanks to my family seeing this on my Amazon wish list or whatever, I'm not sure exactly where it wasn't. They didn't get it through Amazon, but they did find it, and they even got the box and the manual, which I was not expecting or demanding on any level. Like I would have just been fine with the cartridge, but no, this son of a bitch, I got the box and I got the freaking manual with it, so I can go back and relive it, the whole thing, just like I was a kid again. Before we go any further, one of my friends watched my last video and made fun of the fact that I started off saying I'm just gonna make a quick video, like updating from my first video, and it turned out I kept rambling for like an hour. So I'll just come out and say, in case you haven't figured it out, I'm not good about timing. I'm very ungrounded. I go off on tangents. That's my style. That's just how my brain works. And when I'm putting out a video or about something that I have a lot to talk about, I'm just going to keep going. And if something pops up, I'm going to keep going, and there you go. And yes, a short video may not actually be a short video. Sue me. What do you want? So anyway, before also we go any further, my videos are always going to contain spoilers. So if you haven't played the Super Mario RPG game and you would like to go back and experience it, do that first and then come back and watch my video because I will have spoilers as always with anything that I talk about. Oh, and of course, because Gin Time has become popular and my friends keep making fun of me for it, we are going to Gin Time a little bit. And just to let you know, today's episode, I'm going to be doing good old-fashioned London Beefeater. This is an imported dry gin, London-style dry gin. It's it's a classic formula, good taste. It's not super potent, and you can tell that like it's not going to be the best quality. But the good news is that it's not going to be that expensive for a good imported gin. So if you want something, if you want something that's not pricey, but definitely gives you something that's not super cheap, in terms of flavor and texture and quality and the way it's going to hit you, I definitely would recommend Beefeater. I'm definitely going to gin time just a little bit more. So, With that said, Beefeater, if you want to send me free crap, by all means. If you don't, oh well, I'm not going to cry about it. So here we go. Uh, Super Mario RPG. It's funny because when I was a kid, I acknowledged that Mario was fun and family friendly. But since I've always been like an old man trapped in a young person's body, almost like some Benjamin Button crap, I slowly realized at some point that because Nintendo was targeting their games for much more like kids, especially young kids, like little kids, family friendly type thing, I after a while realized that Mario as a franchise was something I just didn't. I kind of was like, okay, well that's for the family and the kids, and then but like I want to be, I want to play the older cool games, the edgier games, the hardcore games, the more. They don't necessarily have to be violent games, but fighting games technically by definition are violent. But not even that. You had games like roughly around the same time I started playing Final Fantasy VII. I was also playing like Resident Evil 2 and other franchises that definitely were not for little kids. But going back and playing a JRPG for styled on Mario, after a while, it was just sort of in my head. I didn't know exactly what kind of experience I was getting, but I was like, you know what, I'm still going to go back and play it. So now that I have it, so I finally popped the sucker in and got a chance to play through it, and I can say that the best thing about the game is they went, hey, let's do a JRPG with semi-platformery elements, but we're gonna star classic Mario characters and maybe even add a few more in. The worst part of the game is that you can tell that they had to Square, who were the guys who developed the game, Square when they were teaming up with Nintendo, you can tell that they had a discussion of we need to make sure this is family friendly. No, we need to make sure this is family friendly. And I do feel because of that, they limited their scope a bit. And I don't necessarily mean like, oh, the game could have been darker and it should have been. It's like, well, no, it doesn't have to be that sense. And I definitely wasn't expecting like cuss words and blood in the game. That's stupid to imagine that there's going to be a Mario game where they allow that. Uh, but I do think they limited themselves in terms of story and definitely in terms of characters and also in terms of the villains. And years ago I heard one of my instructors and when I was an actor say, a movie is only as good as its villain. If you have a good villain, it has a better chance of being a good movie. If you have a bad villain, it's not going to be that great of a movie. And I think that's the fundamental like the foundational problem with this game is that like, hey, I get to be Mario and there's other things that are going to happen along the way, but the bad guys suck. And the conflict is there's apparently this evil Smith, and that's the main villain, is this guy named Smithy. And you don't even get to see him at the beginning. You see like his biggest archon or his biggest construct. It's this big sword. I'll show you the photo again. It's this big evil sword. It's an anthropomorphic sword that slams down onto Bowser's castle. And while I thought this was actually the main guy, it turns out it's not the main guy. It turns out this is actually like his puppet head goon who breaks down Bowser's castle while Mario is in the middle of trying to rescue Peach from Bowser. And that's another problem. We know that she's called, Peach, but we also, like, her official formal title would be like Princess Toadstool. The game doesn't call her Peach. The game calls her Toadstool. And at no point do they ever call her Peach. At least I didn't catch it. Oh, excuse me, I'm burping. I fell of pasta. Lots of good pasta today. But that's the problem. Like, and I need to make a note here. I personally don't like mushrooms. I think mushrooms don't taste good. It doesn't matter how you prepare them. They don't have a good flavor unless they are really, really ground up and mixed with like a bunch of other different things and put into like a alternative like a veggie patty or something like that. Mushrooms aren't that good for me. I hate mushrooms, and the idea they're kind of gross. Mushrooms are like, in my opinion, mushrooms are zombie plants. They're things that sort of mimic plants in how they operate. Even though if you talk to a biologist or a taxonomist, they'll probably say, no, they're very, very different. But they grow on dead shit. So for me, they might as well be zombie plants. Not kidding. And so the idea of eating them are just, I don't want to eat, I don't like mushrooms. I think they're gross. I understand that, in a Mario game that like, what does Mario do? He goes down pipes. He's a plumber and he eats mushrooms. He gets big and fights, and he has to save Princess Peach or Princess Toadstool. And but like I get it, but it was one of those things where it started off and I was like, oh dear God, I was not ready for the onslaught. And of course, you're the first buddy you run into is Toad, and it's like it was just an anthropomorphic mushroom guy. And then you run and like and then again they don't call her Peach, they call her Toadstool. I'm like, this is disgusting. Like the introduction of classic Mario in JRPG format is mushroom bombardment. It's disgusting. I wanted to puke myself from start to finish. I'm not even kidding. I'm not even joking. Like, I made a joke to my girlfriend where, like, there's certain foods, because I'm a picky douchebag, as some of you might know. If you don't know, I'm a picky douchebag. And there's certain foods I just can't do, like I get a gag reflex, or just the idea of eating them, or it's never prepared right, whatever. Mushrooms are pretty much on that list, except, like I said, if you can really disguise them in like a veggie patty and combine them with a bunch of other stuff, then it's fine. Then they're kind of like a seasoning. But raw mushrooms, it's fucking gross. Um, so that was the first thing that bothered me. Uh, and the story starts off with Bowser abducts Peach yet again. Mario has to go save her, goes to the castle, but lo and behold, as they're doing this giant sword guy slams down, and then he's like, this castle now belongs to Smithy, and all of you are basically get out of here. And then Mario's like, crap, I don't know what happened to Peach or even Bowser. I got to go out and find her so I can rescue her. Bowser not so much, obviously. And then, as it turns out, the first buddy you run into is Toad. Now, this is another problem that I think is maybe just the basic approach. So, if you were to say, hey, there's going to be a Mario RPG, you probably would think that the story would be like Mario teams up with Toad and maybe Yoshi, maybe Peach, and they have to stop Bowser. Or it's just Mario, Toad, Yoshi has to rescue Peach from Bowser, or something like that. And that would be the whole game, because it would be like a traditional Mario game, but just in that story and gameplay format. In here, they said we're going to change up the formula, which I don't have anything against. I don't have anything against when they want to change the formula. I guess they didn't want it to be super predictable. The problem is that they throw original characters, both good and bad guys, at you that are just not that interesting, and I could not give two craps about the first guy that you run into who joins your party. His name is Mallow, and he's like this. At first, I thought it was supposed to be Mallow was like Marshmallow, or it was supposed to be like it was supposed to be a play on Marshmallow. So which is like a food themed guy, but he also could have been a cloud. But either way, he's like, and you find him, and then of course there's some hijinks. He was raised by frogs and tadpoles, and then of course when you find his dad, Frogfucius, he's like, son, I have to tell you something. You're actually not a frog, and then of course everybody gasps. And then it's like, we adopted you. We don't know, we rescued you while you were like wherever he said they found him, and we don't know who your parents are, but we just know that you're not actually a frog. And of course, we as the gamer, the player, are like, well, we know. So they're trying to be kind of funny. There was a few moments in there where I did legit kind of laugh. But like for example, Frogfucius, when he first is premiering, he's off screen, and then you hear him say, hey, like, watch it. I have to look like I'm flying. And then you see him like hovering in from the corner, but then you notice that behind him is that Koopa guy who hangs out in the cloud, and he's got him on like a fishpole, and that's how he's not actually flying. Frogfucius is pretending to fly, and he's got the cloud guy hovering. I'm like, okay, that actually was kind of funny. Like that made me laugh. There's little moments like that I appreciated. But then you encounter other, like your next character who joins your party again is not Toad. Toad is just this guy who's going to sell you some stuff or give you some directions, and that's it. He doesn't join your party to fight with you at all. And I'm like, why? But you get Mallow, this original character who's basically just like a puffy dude. And then the next character you encounter is like this wooden doll named Gino, who is inhabited by a star spirit, or just, I guess, a star. The anthropomorphic star people up in the Star Road. And then he takes over this doll, and then he joins Mario and Mallow and says, we have to stop the bad guys because they're trying to wreck the Star Road. If they wreck the Star Road, and then this is where you find out what the main conflict is. The bad guys want to break down the Star Road, and then, which is bad because that means that people's wishes and dreams will never come true, and the world will plunge into darkness and misery, basically. And so that's why the bad guys got to be stopped. And I'm like, okay, well, so it's a tangible story arc. It's a tangible conflict. It's like, oh no, these are bad guys, and obviously they can't go to like horrifying depths of who these bad guys are in a Mario game. But it does feel like they're holding back a little bit, or they didn't structure it to where at least it was like, again, it seems like they were trying to do something original, but I had never encountered these people before, and ultimately I didn't like the new characters, and the bad guys are forgettable and uninteresting. Like Smithy is just, as it turns out, when you get to the end of the game, just this metal evil Smith guy who wants to make weapons. I guess that's his only goal, is he wants to make weapons because weapons spread misery or something like that. And then your first boss is like a drill bit guy, and then you fight a bow and arrow guy, and I mean, you do get some classic, you know, Mario. You get some classic Mario guys in there. Like you get Koopas, you get Boos, you get the Centipede guys. You get a lot of them, and then I'm like, okay, well that's cool. That's the fun part. Uh, but it seems like the majority of the stuff. And then okay, there's like a shark guy, named like you know, Johnny Jones or something like that, and it's like he's a play off Davy Jones, and he's on the ghost pirate ship. It's like, oh, okay, it's a ghost sunken ghost ship. Okay, well that's in Mario. That's fine. No, you go into a volcano at one point. I mean, there's things that feel like good Mario, and there's things that they wanted to add in, and it's like, but the original characters they added in suck. The bad guys are forgettable and aren't that interesting. And the guy, I couldn't figure out what the main bad guy's motivation was outside if he said something about like I wanted to get my revenge, but I can never figure out what his revenge was, and either I missed it or it just flew through the moments and it just didn't really impact anything. It just kind of felt like they needed some bad guys to be doing something in Mario, and they said, well, what? Here's the Mario world. Here's the plane of Mario. Here's the gate, the playing field. Have fun, and then they went, okay, how about he's trying to get through the Star Road, but then somebody wants to break the Star Road, and then that could be, and I don't know. I feel like this is a game where they kind of just said, screw it, just put it together, and then if people are going to like it or they're not going to like it. It's either going to be like, one of the, like Mario's Time Machine, where like nobody remembers that. Nobody talks about that because it wasn't really that great of a game, apparently. I remember playing a little bit of it and not figuring out where to go, but as a little kid, I wasn't always the best at thinking outside the box or grasping the core of it. That's not the point, though. We're talking about a known franchise and translating it into a different genre. But in this case, I do feel like it was good as a genre starter, but I don't think from a storytelling standpoint anybody even remember. Like I have friends that are much bigger Nintendo fans than I am. The majority of them either didn't play the Mario RPG, like the Seven Stars, or they just didn't care, or like it's a game where they didn't even want to go back and replay it because it just for whatever reason wasn't that appealing. And I understand why after having played it. Like I'm glad that I fulfilled like one of my early childhood fantasies of going back and like beating this game, but I just largely feel like it could have been so much more than that. But they played it safe. I think that's the problem. They played it too safe, and they gave us bad, forgettable villains, bad original characters. And I will say the only fun now the fun parts I guess is it subverted your expectations before that was even a big thing, where it's like no, the game is not going to be your rescuing Peach from Bowser. In fact, both of them eventually end up joining your party to stop the real bad guys who are invading the Mushroom Kingdom and all these other lands. But I and I appreciated they had things like, oh no, Bowser and Peach and you team up with these other two douchebags to stop these guys. But I largely just, it's weird because I feel like they still should have stuck to something typical and then maybe changed it a little bit as it went along, and then really gave you a great story that made you realize that there were maybe more original Mario based villains to fight as opposed to just having those like your Boos and your Goombas and things like that. They're literally just minions. They're fodder. There's even like a Kong reference and things like that, which are like, okay, that's kind of fun, but I feel like for This Is Mario, they could have just taken some other minor guys, made those the minions, and took the classic characters or the classic enemies that are the more iconic ones, like one of the Hammer Brothers or something like that, and made them the bosses. That way they could have made it feel like it was a traditional Mario experience. And then maybe at the very end, or like not even at the very end, halfway through the game, you actually get to Bowser's castle, and then as it turns out, things run amok. Like as it turns out, like King Boo is trying to screw things up, and then you rescue Peach, but also Bowser. You pity him, and you go, all right, look, Bowser, you have to promise never to mess with us, any of us, ever again. And we will help you we will help you put you back in your castle, but you have to make a solemn vow, and the stars are going to watch you, and they'll blow you out of the sky if you break it. And he's like, all right, fine. They could have done that, and they didn't do it. Oh, also, where's Luigi? It mentions Luigi, but it's like he's even shown, I think, in the credits, like at the end. Thanks for playing. But I'm like, that's another thing. How come it's not Mario, Luigi, Toad, and Princess Peach team up to fight Bowser, and then maybe at some point Bowser's castle explodes, and then you have to go after like three more iconic big baddies from that you kind of know from the Mario franchise anyway. Uh, and again, Luigi, in my opinion, is better than Mario. We can at least jump higher, and he wears green, and as we all know, green's a better color than red. Um, right? But I mean, like that. Look, the point is, I would have liked to have seen some traditional aspects in a Mario RPG, especially because this is their first, as far as I know, this was their first attempt at making a major RPG that at least got successfully ported or imported over to the States as well. I would have liked to have seen the traditional format, and then maybe they could have changed it up halfway through. I'm going to gin time just a little bit. I made it too cold. Doesn't matter. You know what? Let's do some more. And those are some of my major criticisms of this game that I actually had, and it made me realize as I was playing it that, oh, actually, and Yoshi. So like here, let's make it easy. Mario, Luigi, Toad, and Yoshi team up to rescue Peach and Bowser. They go to the castle, and then they get into a fight, but then the castle like falls apart and gets taken over by like, I don't know, like I said, 2 or 3 of the big iconic Mario guys, and that's when you also add Peach and Bowser to your party, and you talk about like they're threatening to break down the Star Road. They don't realize that if they do that, it's going to screw over everybody. And Bowser's like, yeah, I won't even be able to get my castle back in and command the respect of my troops. Screw it, we're all going to come together. And it just felt like that kind of opportunity probably that there should have been a traditional format that they could have played with as it went along, and instead they kind of immediately kind of toyed with the idea of, nope, we're going to take that, turn it on its head. The rest of the game is this semi-original crap that's not even memorable. I don't care about Smithy or his goons. And then some of the other original characters they throw in, at least I think they're original, but there's been Mario games that came out before this, obviously. But like Booster, this weird dude with a giant facial expression, it's just like whatever, and it's like I think he's supposed to be like a joke despot kind of guy. But I didn't like. They were all climbing this tower. There were some puzzles, but I was like, all right, I don't really care about this. I just need to move on. Oh, you rescue people. I just fucking move on. Who cares? That's the thing. There's too many things in here that are just forgettable. They're not. It's not that it doesn't quite feel like Mario. It just feels like it's what's a silly little thing we can throw in here that the kids will appreciate, and that's it. That's all they had. And I also mentioned, and of course, there's other things I want to talk about, or at least things that I mentioned before that I do think they aim for much too young. They aim for too young of an audience here. I think they should have just said, aim it for like the older kids, like at least the teens, because then younger siblings will latch onto it anyway. Parents will want to bond with their kids over it, and make it family friendly, but with enough fun or darker elements. And obviously, I don't say mature because I don't want people to think like violence and sex needs to be in this, because, well, it can't be. It's a freaking Mario game. But you know what I mean. Like, you can make it a little bit edgier, just a little bit darker, a little bit more interesting, and at least try to make the more original elements for this game, deliver something. Like, and I know that, again, the hindsight's always 2020, but, Game Grumps, I've been watching compilations with them over the past few months for some reason. I've been on a kick with them. And they went and played through, like, one of the Paper Mario games. And even the original characters that I'm seeing in there, even if they're meant as a joke or as a bad guy, there's like this Boo lady that joins your party, and of course she's drawn funny, and she's got like jokingly big hooters, and she's clearly like this big, strong, Mama Boo kind of character, and I'm like, that's a character that kids can appreciate because they can identify who she is and kind of make fun of the fact, oh, she's a ghost, but she's also a funny looking ghost. Teens and adults can appreciate the fact that they made this like stacked, burly mama, don't mess with me kind of woman Boo character. Like, that right there is a great example of how you do an original character. And again, I know that game came out like, what, 15 years after like the 7 Stars came out? But even then, I'm just saying, like, that's a good way to do it. And you can tell Mario and Nintendo and all those guys came together over the years and said, let's keep making the franchise fun and fresh, and how do we evolve and make it work. But this is a game where I feel like it was much more of an experiment. This really does feel experimental. They tried something new, and it only went so far, in my opinion. And it's funny now that I played it, I know that there's a few things that I missed. I did because again, Square did do an okay job of having like some minor cryptic things you can unlock and do. And there's certain items and also things like frog coins. I know I didn't collect all the frog coins. Hidden jumping icons. I know I didn't get all those. There's a bunch of things that you can do to collect and like complete the game, but unlike some of the other JRPGs that they've put out, even some of the other Mario games, like even Super Mario World on the SNES, which is still a great iconic platformer. A few years ago, I actually wanted to go back and play through it and do as much as I can in that game. I'm playing through Mario RPG. I don't care about going back and beating this. I don't care about reliving this experience now that I've done it. Like, I'm glad I did it, but it's like it's not that interesting. It's not as rewarding as it could have been. It's not as original. It's not as whatever. It just is largely like, okay, it's an okay experience. And I'm kind of sad. There's a part of me that's a little sad that that's what I got out of that. Because maybe in my mind, in my kid brain, after like 20 plus years of nostalgia buildup of wanting to go back and finally complete this game. Sorry, my nose is itching. But wanting to go back and complete this game, and there's a part of me that was hoping there'd be this grand adventure. I felt like I didn't maybe quite get it. And it's sad because, again, I think the easiest thing they could have done is had Mario and Luigi team up. And then they find Toad and Yoshi. And then they recruit Peach and Bowser or something. Or maybe they even, team up with or maybe even Mario teams up with, like, a hammer brother who's like, my hammer broke and now I need to go get a new hammer. And Mario's like, all right, buddy. Look, it's clear that you're an easy fight here. Come with me. I'll take some pity on you and help you get your hammer, but just don't mess with me, otherwise you're going to have a problem. Or something like that. Like, you could have accrued bad guys, and then they could have built up to, like, the original characters, like Luigi and Peach and Toad, and, or something like that. But they didn't, and it just seems like they missed the mark in that regard. It seems like it was just something that they felt like, well, if it's for little kids, little kids aren't necessarily historians, so they're probably not going to be able to worry about comparing it all that much, except for the fact that little kids also latch onto things that they're really into. How, like, there's kids that, like, some kids latch onto dinosaurs and they understand, like, every dinosaur and they can pronounce every name, and they even know, like, science and complex things about them from when they're like their brain absorbs it. It's like a sponge when they're a kid, like they're in that state. It's kind of in the same thing. Little kids do that. They absorb that kind of stuff. So it's not that little kids wouldn't be historians, but little kids would be like, who is Mallow? Who is Gino? Who is that big sword guy? I've never seen him before. Like, I'm thinking of little boys and girls playing this, going, "Where's Luigi? I want Mario and Luigi to be my team," and they can't do that. I don't know. It just seems like it's Square. Maybe there was just miscommunication, or there was like a simple, just make it easy and make it work. Don't overthink it, because we don't want you to take a chance on botching the job, and you don't want to take a chance on, making your genre look like it's not any good for all mediums or something like that. I don't know. Oh, and that's another note that I'm annoyed with. I know that there are games where it has worked. I'm well aware. Before I even say anything, I have played Chrono Trigger. Chrono Trigger is one of the best JRPGs ever made, and I will admit that they made it work in that game. But I do not like silent protagonists. I don't put myself into the silent protagonist any easier than I put myself into a regular character. And in fact, when I have a full developed character with their own voice and their own words and stuff like that, I actually appreciate that more. I identify regardless whether somebody is saying something or not saying anything. People will do that, or they will either project themselves or they won't project themselves. A silent protagonist, I will argue, is it's only going to make it slightly easier for a handful of personalities out there. So in my opinion, why they didn't just make Mario like a cartoony kind of a fun Italian guy, they should have just went ahead and did it. Instead, they didn't give him any dialogue. He's a silent protagonist. He exclusively expresses himself through physical humor and slapstick and things like that. And I think they were thinking like this is great for little kids, but I'm also thinking like, yeah, but if you're gonna give everybody else dialogue, just give Mario a few words here and there. He can still be slapsticky and animated. You know, it's Mario. It's fine. It'd be like if you made like just make this easier, a quicker to the point argument. Imagine if Square teamed up with like Warner Brothers and made like a Looney Tunes RPG, and they said, well, the main character is going to be Bugs Bunny, but we want to make Bugs Bunny a silent protagonist. It's not going to work. Bugs Bunny's been around for too long. He's an iconic character. You know he's gonna, as a bunny rabbit, say, you know, what's up, Doc? Like, if you made him a silent protagonist, people would be like, why isn't Bugs doing his thing? Same with like if they teamed up with Disney and made a, you know, well, of course they made like Kingdom Hearts stuff, but I'm saying like that, and that's the thing right there. Kingdom Hearts, which of course came out years after Seven Stars, but that's the point I'm trying to make here is Mickey was Mickey. Now, granted, Mickey wasn't the main character. The main character were like these three unoriginal anime boy girl team, and they team up with Goofy and Donald, and it's like, but they all have their original characters. The only one who doesn't really say a whole lot is Sora, from what I understand. But I've watched my friends play those games for a bit on and off, but it's like they didn't just say we're gonna have you play as Mickey, and then oh by the way, Mickey's gonna be a silent protagonist. But it's like, but we know Mickey talks like this, boy, yahoo, you know. So it's like, why didn't they just make? And here's the thing: I know that Mario is obviously not as old as Bugs Bunny or Donald Duck or Mickey Mouse or anything like that, but still, Mario was still a well-known, identifiable character. I mean, like I mean, outside of like Pac-Man, like he became like the most commercially known, successful character for like since it started to become a popular thing in the 80s. So Mario as a character, like, especially when they started drawing him out and fleshing him out and making him look really cartoony, like really came into his own. But we know he sounds like I think the cartoon was out by now, and they sounded like a goofy Italian plumber. We knew that's probably what he was going to sound like. So making him a silent protagonist in this, while I understand why they did it, it doesn't help me connect with Mario any easier. And in fact, it just makes me go, like, are you trying to get me to just project myself? Because I'm not going to project myself onto this guy. It's Mario. He's already a cartoon of himself. He's fine. Just give him some dialogue here and there. Maybe even give him more declarative, like, dialogue between these characters. I know his relationship to Mallow is not important because Mallow's a new character anyway, Geno. But if you're going to have him talk to, like, Yoshi or Toad or Peach or even Bowser, I mean, Mario versus Bowser is, you know, like, iconic, like, hero-villain conflict, like, you know, their rivalry. They should be able to say something to each other and get, especially if Bowser's willing to team up with you, but you don't get that. It can't go any further than that because Mario has to be a silent protagonist because they want you as the gamer to identify with that. And I sometimes feel like in this case, I feel like it didn't work. Yes, it worked in Chrono Trigger, and there's other games somebody can quote if you want to comment in the section. I get it, but it's just for me, I felt like I would rather have seen Mario as an animated cartoon because as an adult and as a kid, I would have appreciated Mario having some personality, and also as an adult and a kid, I would appreciate him having witty remarks for certain situations, and you know, or as an adult, I'd appreciate him being able to go like, all right, Bowser, you and I have had it out over the years, but from here on out, you're never going to touch Peach again, and I'll help you get your castle back, but if you don't, I'm going to tell the Star Road that they're going to have to break your castle up and you're never going to get it again. Or something like that. Anything. Like, he's an Italian guy. Mario's Italian. Give him some freaking, you know, give him some Sicilian, like, all right, from here on out, if you ever mess with me or Peach or any of my friends again or the Mushroom Kingdom, we're going to blow you out of the water or something like that. Or the stars are going to make sure you go far, far away and deliver you to another planet even. I don't know. That makes sense, doesn't it? Make him sound like a hardcore Italian guy for the adults, but make him also sound like a funny, you know, I am a funny Mario, hoo-hoo, you know, like for the kids, but like you can blend them. I think it would have taken a little bit more effort, but this game isn't that complex, and it's definitely mechanically and systematically not as complex, at least it can't be, compared to what some of the JRPGs, like Final Fantasy 5 and 6, and things like that Square had already put out by now, in addition to other JRPGs. Like, I think they could have done it and put more effort in things like that, I guess. And again, I don't know if Nintendo really had a clamp on them or if Square felt like this could have been a huge contract opportunity for the future, so they didn't want to drop the ball, so they played it too safe, or maybe it was a combination of both. You never know. Um, I thought about doing more research on this game, but then I ultimately realized that there's really no point because this is a game that, even though people can recognize it, I don't think because technically it's classic, but it's not great classic. It's just fine classic, meaning that like I said before, even my diehard friends who are still Nintendo people look back on that and they go, well, I know what that game is, but I probably didn't play that much of it, or I remember playing a little bit, but that's it. And who's the bad guy in that? What's the story even about? That's kind of what I'm getting. So the reception kind of speaks for itself. But it is a good, it was a precursor. It was, like I said, it laid down the tracks for them to experiment with, for Square to say this is what we can and can't do with JRPGs, I think, and give them like an idea of where their boundaries are. But it also told Nintendo that yes, you can do other things with it, but you really need to make sure that quality over quantity here. So maybe that's sort of the message that it came across. So it took a while for them to do more with that. Just as an example. Anyway, so I'm excited that I got to go back and play that, and of course I do have my criticisms of it. There's moments in it that I do enjoy, but I don't cherish any of it, and I'm glad that I have it and I can add it to my collection and that I've finally been able to play it. I'm also, like I said, glad I got the box and the manual. And because there's something about that I do kind of miss these days. And especially when you open the if a game comes with a manual these days, they're usually really, really slim. And half of it is really, really minor, like, legal protection. Like notice, like, there's a warning in the first page that says like playing video games for too long might cause you seizures and blah blah blah. And then there's also like copyright law reminders. And then they have the credits, if they're like table of contents, and they tell you what the game is. Here's the mechanics and certain things. But there's just not as much of the fun presentation of it. I do kind of miss that. Like, I still have the handbook that came with SimCity, like on the Super Nintendo. SimCity on the Super Nintendo is one of my favorite games. And in fact, I'll probably do a video about that in the near future, now that I'm brainstorming it out loud right now. But I also, it came with a manual, and the manual I would actually argue was necessary, and it's also fun to read, and it's like there's a presentation to it. Like you get to see like fun little cartoony things. There's a lot of details about how to play the game, and in fact, the game for that now, granted, SimCity, and the programming behind SimCity is a little bit different, obviously, than the Mario jumping and platforming games. I get it. It's like SimCity needs that manual, whereas Mario, it's not so much needed. But it was fun. Like I remember Doom, like when we had Doom on the SNES, it came with a manual that was cool to read. Jurassic Park had a manual that was fun, and it kind of brought you into like the mindset of that movie and the game that you're about to play and things like that. Just as examples. I do kind of miss that. I think most video games these days, most don't even have manuals. Most don't even have manuals. You can tell they just kind of have like maybe a little sliver, and it's like an advertisement, and another sliver that's like legal protection and copyright crap, so you don't get the opportunity to sue them or whatever because you had a seizure or some shit. Anyway, gin time. Hold on. Anyway, so I do kind of miss that era. And this game is definitely a bit nostalgic. Not lovingly nostalgic, just nostalgic of like, man, I always wanted to go back and beat it. Now I have, and I'm kind of glad I did. It's a good thing to add under the belt, but it's not necessary in hindsight. But I'm glad I wanted to say something about it initially. I was joking with my friends about the damn mushroom things, and they were just like, maybe you should put that in your video. And I'm like, maybe I should, or whatever, Anyway. But I'm glad that I got to go back and experience it, and I don't want to keep repeating myself, so that's really all that I actually have to say for this particular game and this particular topic at the moment. I do want to say that, like I said, I've played other Mario games, that since then that I do think have kind of hit the mark a bit more than others. Like you have Super Mario 64, that definitely was making people go like, wow, like definitely changed the game on that one. And now you've got all these other ones like Super Mario Galaxy and all these other games that got thrown together. In addition to the Paper Mario series, Mario Party games were huge. That also kind of did it. And then of course Nintendo, when they started putting out the Smash Brothers games, it's like, and they heavily brought in all their main Nintendo players, and you can tell they played around with that mythos a bit too, and they've added more onto it. Like there's more characters in the Mario franchise, even like Waluigi and Wario, and well, Bowsette, and even things like that. Like there's things like that which I find hilarious, and the fact that they've added more onto it. But what I do find hilarious is that none of the stuff in Mario, The Legend of the Seven Stars, kind of made it back into that mythos. In fact, they seem to have forgotten it, or they just don't want to acknowledge it. So it says right there what the reception is, even in the long term. And to be straightforward, I just got done playing the latest Smash Brothers with my friends that came out, and like they even made announcements like they have characters from Castlevania, and they even brought in Terry Bogard from Fatal Fury and stuff like that, and a bunch of other novelty characters from Nintendo franchise games. And it's funny because even then, when we played some of the stages and all this other kind of stuff, I haven't caught anything from the Mario RPG in that game or any of the previous titles when I played with my friends. So again, you can tell that it's a precursor, but it's not the best game that they put out, and that's just kind of what this particular game did. It tried something, but that's as far as you can go with it. I did like the soundtrack, and I did like the imagination. There was the adventurous aspects that were fun. Even going into like the sunken ghost ship as a level, it was like, oh yeah, I remember seeing that in the Super Mario World, or things like that. Hey, there's Mario, there's Yoshi, and there's a bunch of other Yoshis. Well, there's one kind of a prick Yoshi, and you challenge him to a race, and if you win, you get some fun stuff. Things like that. There's elements that I did enjoy, but I noticed after a while, once I started playing, I just kind of wanted to just get through it and beat it. And it wasn't like I was really drawn in and absorbed by it the way I think that I was hoping for. But, oh well, I finally completed something. I went back and, I was able to beat a game that I thought about ever since I was a kid on and off. And it's really nice to get through it and say, like, now that I've done it, I've done it. It's not like a memory regret kind of thing or whatever you want to call it. So I'm excited. I'm happy. I'm not thrilled the way that I was hoping for, but I'm not going to beat up a game that's this old, and like it spoke the reception and the nostalgia speaks for itself. Rather, the lack of reception and nostalgia speak for itself. So, with that said, that's my review of Super Mario RPG and The Legend of the Seven Stars. Not a bad game, and I would encourage you guys, in case you haven't gotten a chance to, whether you have experienced it yourself, go ahead and go back to play it. Maybe you have a different perspective on it than I do. For those of you who haven't gotten a chance to play it, go ahead and try it. It's not a bad game, so I would recommend it. But it's not the best, and I think you'll definitely notice you'll be pining for the same things that I think I was pining for. And and if you want to be a completionist, go back and be a completionist. It's totally fine. I don't know if there's any other obscure Mario RPG games or Mario-related games I ever want to go back to in the future. There was a Nintendo DS game and again, I'm not a big handheld systems guy, so that's why I never tried it. But there was a game called like Bowser's Inside Story, where Mario and Luigi get shrunken down inside Bowser, and then they kind of are like half of the game, from what I understand, is you're in Bowser, and then the other half of the game is Bowser dealing with outside threats to his castle. So it's kind of a fun game experience from what I've been told, but I don't know if I'll ever go back and try that one out unless I can get access to it and want to spend money on trying it out or whatever. But I don't think I'm necessarily in need of giving it a shot unless I just have nothing better to do, or I'm dying for ideas for videos or whatever. So with that said, I'll open it up to you guys. What did any of you out there think about Super Mario RPG? How old were you when you first played it? What was your reception of it? Do you like the fact that they have a bunch of original stuff in there that seems to be at the foreground? How did you feel about it? Were you like me? Were you excited when you realized Bowser was going to get to be a part of your party? Or were you like, this is kind of an oddball story? What are your comments? What are your thoughts, your opinions? Because I'd like to know what people think about it. As always, if you like my video, like and subscribe and stuff like that. There's nothing I have for you to donate, and I definitely don't want to take that kind of money. So I hope you guys enjoy the video. Unfortunately, I got a haircut recently, and the barber totally screwed up my do, and I'm a little sad by it. It's too short, and so I was growing this out also whatever. Anyway, so not the most presentable, and I felt like I didn't really want to wait too much longer. I really wanted to just kind of get this out so I can maybe focus my mental energy on something else to talk about in the future. And as always, drink responsibly, And if there's any other comments that you want to make about Mario, like what was your experience growing up with the Super Nintendo, or your gaming experience, or if you have ideas that you want to throw out, or other JRPGs even that you felt like were awesome, whether they were influenced or an influence on this, influenced by this or an influence on this game. What are some of the ones that you really had a really good time with? I made a comment early on that like Chrono Trigger is probably one of the best JRPGs ever made, at least in the classic 16-bit era. Are there other ones that you feel like people need to go out and try out, whether it's the classics or even the more obscure things? And if you have your own gaming experience that you want to talk about, go ahead and make a comment about it. Otherwise, last minute gen time. And the video I'm looking at is not going to exceed an hour. So, haha on you guys. But yeah, if there's anything you guys want to be nostalgic about, I urge you to go back and try things out. If there's ever something that you wanted to do when you were a kid, but you totally have the freedom to go out and do it as an adult, obviously within reason, right? Go ahead and try it out, you know. I mean, for every Super Mario RPG that you're like, oh crap, I really wanted to go back and experience, you know, that doesn't mean you're going to get the same thing every time. There might be a good movie out there that you really wanted to watch, and now you can finally sit down and watch it. And and also importantly, while it's okay to listen to others, you know, at the end of the day, it's okay to form your own opinion, and it is okay to objectively say these are the things I thought were okay, or these are the things I thought were great versus problematic. And then in general, it's okay to be subjective and say also like whether people like it or didn't like it, whether the game is good or bad. I personally enjoyed it, or I personally did not enjoy it. You know, that's a freedom of expression, right? Let's celebrate. Anyway, hope everybody's staying safe this winter, wherever it is that you're living. I know that right now, I do want to make a shout out and say, right now, Australia is apparently under fire. Like, there's been a lot of damage and a lot of destruction and a lot of dead animals. So if any of you want to find something good or a good cause to champion at the moment, I highly recommend you find donations and charities to help out Australia. Like I said, they're falling apart, and they're still having outbreaks, and hopefully they can get it. Hopefully they can, you know, find a way to quash all of the blazes, and everything will return back to normal. Thoughts and prayers go out to victims of any national tragedies or natural disasters that have been going on in general. And hopefully everybody out there will have a good new 2020. And otherwise, stay safe. Everybody have a good time. And if you have any suggestions about things that you want me to talk about, go ahead and put it at the bottom, and I'll consider getting to it and seeing what I have to say. I'll probably end up making a video in the near future about SimCity because I really enjoy that game. And I do have a lot to say about that game as well. And that's another old classic SNES nostalgia moment. Although that one, I played the crap out of ever since I was a kid. And, well, I'll find something to say about it. And I'm also glad to see that they even brought in, what's his name, Dr. Wright in the new, is like just like as a little pop-up character in the new Smash Brothers. It's like, oh, hey, it's him and his crazy green hair. But again, you're not going to see any Legend of the Seven Stars characters in there outside of the ones that were already, you know, pre-made characters for that. Anyway, all right, well, peace. And if I have an addendum video, I might consider making one, but I think I'm pretty much good to go at this point. So until then, y'all stay safe, and don't watch the new Star Wars movie. It sucks. Bye.